Hello everyone and welcome back to the second video in our mini Crusaders topic. Today we'll be looking at the Siege of Jerusalem and the Third and Fourth Crusade. This will also be the final video in the series. So following the Second Crusade, infighting arose in the Muslim world, mainly due to differences in ideology, aka Sunni and Shia Muslims. It resulted in Salah ad-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub, more commonly known as Saladin, rising to power as the new ruler of the Ayyubid dynasty. Now, this dynasty mostly took control of Fatimid and Seljuk Turks' control areas, so mostly in Egypt and what is now modern-day Turkey. And in the Kingdom of Jerusalem, a new king was coronated. King Baldwin IV of Jerusalem, also known as Leper King, was coronated on 5th of July 1174. However, as a leper, he was not expected to live long, which he sadly didn't. However, in 1183, Baldwin IV and Renaud de Chatillon, along with the Knights Templar, defeated Saladin during the Battle of Montgizard on the 25th of November 1177. However, soon Baldwin IV died in 1185, and Baldwin V became king. However, he then died in 1186. However, he was able to negotiate a truce with Saladin in his 1 year of reign. However, Guy de Lusignan was crowned king of Jerusalem, and he heavily hated Saladin and Muslims. This resulted in him not renegotiating the truce with Saladin, but declaring war on him. However, he was able to see some successes. However, it eventually resulted in the decimation of most Christian forces during the Battle of Cresson on the 1st of May 1187. However, Guy was not stopped by this defeat. He then raised the largest force that Jerusalem had ever put to field. However, Saladin, being more knowledgeable in the land and how to use mobile warfare, tricked them into marching many miles without any water. He also then harassed them with horse archers, very similar to what you would see with the Mongol Empire. He eventually then wiped out the entire army during the Battle of Hattin. It resulted in Guy falling to capture before being released soon after, while Renaud de Chatillon was beheaded, settling an old score, following the Battle of Montgizard. It resulted in Saladin being able to take over almost all of what the area around Jerusalem is now. He then besieged Jerusalem on the 20th of September 1187. Now, Jerusalem was currently under the protection of Balian of Ibelin, a lord from France. However, although he had 50 fully trained knights, and lots of peasants and other knights and crusaders that had survived, the city surrendered on the 2nd of October due to the fact that they were outmatched. However, that's a video for another time, as it is an amazing siege to look at. It is said that upon hearing that Jerusalem was retaken by the Muslims, Pope Urban III died from the news. Now, the Third Crusade was launched quickly afterwards. Now, following the defeat in the East, the new Pope Gregory VIII issued the bull Audita Tremendi on the 29th of October 1187, urging all Christians to take the crusade. The Third Crusade this time, however, would be led by Frederick Barbarossa and King Richard I of England, also known as Richard the Lionheart. Now, Frederick took the cross in March 1188 and sent an ultimatum to Saladin to return Jerusalem, along with all of the Middle East and former Crusader states, and challenged him to a battle. In May 1189, Frederick left for Byzantium, and in March 1190 left for Asia Minor, which is Turkey, However, the Germans were able to push the Turks far back to Sicilia. However, on the 10th of June 1190, Frederick drowned, causing his soldiers to leave and return home. However, not all left, as some would join the joint French and British or English crusading force. Now, Richard I had already taken the cross in 1187 at the Count of Poitou, and in 1188, King Richard and Philip II of France agreed upon a truce as they were at war with each other, as England had many controlled states in France. But they agreed on a truce and went on the crusade together. This resulted in the siege of Acre, which was already a stalemate, which had been launched by Guy de Lusignan, who had just recently been released, and then immediately began to attack Saladin again, where then he was encircled by Saladin's forces, resulting in the Muslim defenders in Acre starving, and also Guy starving, and his army starving. But the Muslim defenders inside Acre surrendered on the 12th of July 1191, which was due to the fact that Richard had recently arrived along with Philip II with many Crusader forces and new siege weaponry. As of course, like I mentioned in the previous video, siege weaponry was heavily used by crusading forces due to their advanced knowledge in it. Now, Richard was also now in full command of the crusading force, as Philip had left on the 31st of July 1191, so only a few days later. This was due to the fact that Philip, knowing that Richard was in the Middle East, he was then able to basically go back to France and continue his war against Richard while Richard was away, allowing him to take back some territories. Now, continuing on from that, on the 20th of August, Richard had more than 2,000 prisoners following this battle. However, he had all of them beheaded during the massacre of Aedia. This resulted in Saladin then having all of his Christian prisoners being executed. Richard did defeat Saladin at many points during his crusade. However, he was not fully able to defeat him to the point where Saladin retreated back to Jerusalem and defended it. Richard did advance upon Jerusalem twice, in fact. The first time he retreated as he did not have a proper seaport to deliver supplies to, so he retreated back to take the seaports near Jerusalem so that he could then bring food and drink in. However, on his second time marching upon it, it was at the wrong time of year, where it was in the summertime when it was most hot. Therefore, the armies were ineffective due to heat exhaustion. He then decided to turn back again. This, paired with Philip going back to France and attacking English forces, resulted in Richard retreating back to England. However, he was kidnapped by the Holy Roman Empire, which is again a video for another time. So this resulted in the Third Crusade failing and the Treaty of Jaffa being signed, which was a truce. It allowed Christian pilgrims to visit the holy cities safely. However, it did not allow for any cities being returned to Christian rule. Now, at this point, we're looking at the Fourth Crusade, and this has to be one of the worst and most tragic in terms of the Crusades, as it was a complete shamble. Now, in 1198, the new Pope Innocent III was announcing a new crusade, and the new leader, having replaced the previous leader, Boniface of Montferrat, was made commander of the crusade, and he contracted the Republic of Venice to transport 30,000 crusaders at the cost of 85,000 marks. However, the problem was is that the place where all the crusaders had to go was not announced to all of them, so many of them chose to go to other ports. This resulted in only 15,000 arriving in Venice. And of course, 15,000 crusades instead of 30,000 did not allow for the full amount of money to be paid to Venice. Now, Venice, being a trading city, of course had interests in trading regions, as they were quite a rich kingdom. And like I said, they were a republic. So the Doge of Venice, that's his title, proposed that Venice would be compensated with profits from other conquests. Now, this began with the Siege of Zara. Now, there's only one problem with this. Not only is it very close to Venice, it's actually in Croatia now, it's also a Christian city. Now, when the Crusaders arrived, the defenders of Zara threw down Christian banners showing the cross on the city's defences. However, it didn't stop them, where they then pillaged the city and killed its inhabitants, where the loot was then ferried back to the Doge of Venice. Following the pillaging of Zara, Philip of Swabia, who was an exiled leader of the Byzantine Empire, tried to get the Crusaders to overthrow Alexios III Angelos, who was the current ruler of Byzantium, who was quite unpopular. And although this was successful, as the Crusaders were able to kick out Alexios III and instate Alexios V, Philip was unable to pay the Crusaders, as he offered them 200,000 marks along with 10,000 troops for the crusade. He had neither, as his soldiers were needed for keeping the borders secure, and he did not have the money since the Byzantine Empire had essentially gone bankrupt due to Muslim advances. Now, the Crusaders had no seaworthy vessels at the time because of the fact that they'd been using them all during sieges, and of course they couldn't maintain them properly. And the only way they were going to get out was through the city, and they also wanted their money. This resulted again in a 3-day sacking of the city, where many Greek Orthodox Christians were murdered. It's quite a tragic event, as this event basically helped collapse the Byzantine Empire to the size it became when it finally collapsed in 1453 to Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II. It also resulted in 4 bronze wolves being sent back to Venice, which you can now visit around the city. I don't know exactly where they are. Now, that is all for the series on the Crusades, due to the fact that anything past the Fourth Crusade, so the 5th to the 9th, are all essentially very small term crusades, and all of them failed. They're also not that interesting or that important, as at the end of the day, they all resulted in the Muslims being able to control the Middle East entirely. Realistically, the only thing that would be interesting past this point would be looking at the Muslim relations with each other in the area, as following Saladin's death, infighting went within the Ayyubid dynasty, resulting in essentially its collapse, and also the concentration of the ideological differences between Sunni and Shia Muslims, which is very similar to what you get with Protestants, Catholics, and Orthodox Christians. So I hope you enjoyed this mini-series. I hope it helps. Obviously, can't go into too much detail for these battles in 10 minutes and stuff, but hopefully we'll continue to do so and do more videos more in depth. Thank you for watching.